Alien Prototype, the novel by Tim Waggoner, introduced a unique type of xenomorph into the Alien Extended Universe mythology. This was a diseased and infectious form of the alien, which came to be known as the Necromorph. This name was coined by Dr. Gagnon, scientist on the colony of Jericho 3, owned by the Venture Corporation, a rival entity to WEYLAND YUTANI. Dr. Gagnon observed that the original host of the xenomorph creature suffered from a disease known as cellular necrosis and apparently passed it on to the newly born alien. Necrosis, a form of cell injury which results in the premature death of cells in living tissue by autolysis, results in the unregulated digestion of cell components. Severe cases, such as seen with the original host, are irreversible and eventually lead to death. It would seem that in the embryonic implantation process that occurred after the host was attacked by a facehugger, the larval xenomorph inherited its host's cellular affliction. This would follow suit with what we know of how the alien forms inside its host. A xenomorph can take on the traits of its host, as we've seen with numerous variants. If the host's cells were corrupted in some way, then the resulting alien born from it theoretically would also form with such a corruption. In the case of the Necromorph, this is indeed true and evident right from its birth, as depicted in the novel. The larva, still protruding from the host's chest, began thrashing back and forth while emitting a shrill wail, as if it was in pain. Barnacle-like pustules and raised black lesions erupted on the larva's body. The larva had adapted to the disease it had inherited. The creature hadn't healed entirely, the pustules were still there, and the lesions, but it had managed to integrate the necrosis into its own genetic makeup without dying. As Dr. Gagnon continues his observations into the Necromorph, the creature continued to live and grow despite his expectations. It appeared on the brink of death but refused to go further. His first impression was a being that was a combination of reptile, insect, and machine. It looked almost biomechanical. A quartet of rod-like protrusions jutted from its back. He couldn't begin to guess at their function, and a tail that looked as if it was comprised of segmented bones swung behind it as it walked. The signs of cellular necrosis were clear. Lesions covered the creature's surface, raised irregular patches darker than the rest of its form, along with clumps of swollen, barnacle-like pustules that looked ready to burst at any moment. The Necromorph matures to its full form and eventually escapes containment, making its way through the duct system of the colony. Victims begin to mount, some killed in a horrific manner, others left alive but with injuries. Very rapidly, black patches and boils would appear on their skin. The sickness had spread and infected through survivors of encounters with the Necromorph. Additionally, the Necromorph had the ability to protrude its inner jaw, and from within, a dark vapor could be emitted, infecting its victims without any direct contact at all. Within mere seconds of contact with a cloud of gas, a host would begin to cough violently, with the sores and lesions appearing on their skin almost immediately. The illness would be so intense that a victim would become paralyzed. These abilities and the creature's behavior utterly fascinated Dr. Gagnon. He notes, "The creature had killed, and killing was its purpose. It had another purpose too, one that in its own way was as powerful as the need to kill, and equally impossible to deny. This purpose came from the disease that had bonded to the xenomorph on the genetic level, the need to spread its contagion. This is why it had spared some of its victims' lives. It had done so at the urging of the cellular necrosis that was its other half, almost as if they were symbiotes instead of a single fused being. Its partner had given it certain advantages. The xenomorph carried the disease but was not affected by it. This trait acted like another weapon in the xenomorph's arsenal, as did the pustules that sprayed thick acidic goo. The black patches that were a prime symptom of cellular necrosis had combined with its exoskeleton to strengthen its natural armor, making it extraordinarily resistant to weapons fire. No matter how many victims a xenomorph claimed, its urge to kill was never sated. It was compelled to seek out living creatures to attack and to spread the contagion. Cellular necrosis was most often fatal, but it normally took several days to get to that point. The strain the Necromorph carried worked far faster, making the creature even more dangerous than one of its kind usually was. Most would have found the Necromorph hideous, but he marveled at its elegantly savage design, and even more so its ability to incorporate a deadly disease into its makeup. To resist the negative effects of that disease, and actually turn it into another weapon in its arsenal. Ever since Darwin, survival of the fittest had been considered the prime factor in successful evolution. Gagnon believed he now gazed upon the fittest creature the galaxy had ever produced. Alien Prototype also reintroduces the long-held theory that a xenomorph, when needed, can morph a victim into an egg to propagate the species. Dr. Gagnon continues to observe the Necromorph and discovers that the infection it spreads can actually be controlled in its severity. This would allow a host to be sick and paralyzed, become host for a facehugger parasite, and remain alive long enough to continue to carry on the necrosis that would result in further Necromorph versions of the alien. From what Gagnon had seen, the Necromorph wasn't food-driven. It ate to fuel itself as it killed so it could continue to kill. Feeding was not the goal. The swift extermination of all non-xenomorph life was its mission. Gagnon theorized that as soon as they reached full maturity, they began to procreate. They were designed to increase their numbers rapidly so they could overwhelm, destroy, and supplant all life forms in any given environment. He wondered if they were all female, or perhaps hermaphrodites, each able to produce ovomorphs. He doubted a single xenomorph could produce many given its size, but once more of the creatures had been born, they could also produce eggs, which, in turn, would produce more xenomorphs in a geometric progression. The Necromorph is a fascinating version of the alien we already know, with its added traits that heighten it as a threat, but also doesn't veer too far off into fantastical variant territory. This is something that fits quite well into the xenomorph biology and mythos. Previous concepts are hinted at, such as the egg morphing ability we saw in Alien: The Director's Cut, and the infectious traits seen in William Gibson's unproduced Alien 3 screenplay. This all plays into a much larger story within the Alien Extended Universe, taking place between the novels The Cold Forge and Into Charybdis. This trio of novels has come to be known as the Symphony of Death trilogy. As it stands, the Necromorph has only appeared in this one novel, but considering much of what we've seen in other forms of media such as the comics and games and further different types of xenomorphs they've presented, I do actually think this specific type of alien could fit right in. Would you be interested in seeing the Necromorph appear in other Alien series media? Comment below and share your thoughts. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and be sure to subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. My very special thanks goes out to Brandon James, XenoShadowMorph, and XenoZip, Queen Tiers of the Patreon Hive. Thank you to Gregory Ford and John Griggs, the Hive's Praetorians. A very special thanks to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence. And my immense thank you to Nicholas Butta and Frank, the Alien Theory WEYLAND YUTANI executives. I'll be back soon with more videos. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media. Follow @alien_theory on TikTok for some fun video extras, and follow @AlienTheoryYT on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.